Welcome to Mac and Blue, where we introduce you to who is building Arizona, bringing you the people and businesses that shape the landscape around us. From economic development and developers, underwriters and lenders, architects and engineers, to the very builders and suppliers that bring it all together. Now let's join our hosts, Robert Johnson and JJ Levensky, aka Mac and Blue.
Welcome to Mac and Blue. I'm Robert Johnson, Vice President of Business Development with Torrey Contracting. He is JJ Levinsky, President of Blue Wave General Contracting. Hey, JJ.
Hi, how are you?
Good. We've seen each other all day long. We've
I know.
probably spent more time together than we have ever.
Well, I wouldn't say ever, but it was a close second.
Yeah.
And it feels good to be back in the studio.
Yeah, it does.
Because we did do because technically last Monday was Labor Day, so we had a recording.
Yeah, we had
we made it look live, but it really wasn't.
It wasn't live. Yeah. So we haven't been able to sit down with Daryl, our producer.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good.
Our pin
awesome.
Cushion, our harassment.
Yeah. He was like, "Is that all you're going to say? You're going to be nice?" Yeah. Good
today.
To see.
Well, at least now.
Yeah.
Give it another 10 minutes, and it'll be a different.
But
story.
Good to see you.
Good
Everything
to see
go? Everything okay?
Everything's amazing. Happy to be here.
Okay.
All right.
We're happy to have you here, and we are really glad to have Malina Deer and Aaron Studebaker. I got it right, didn't I?
You got it right.
And I was going to say, like the car.
Like the car.
Like he never.
I have never Studebaker
ever.
Car?
Yeah. They used to have one. Thank you both for being here. Both of them are with Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community.
All right.
SRP MIC.
Gold star for getting that right in the first try.
Yeah. I studied for hours. Thank you. Malina, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do with them.
Yeah. Thanks for having us here today. So I am the tourism manager for Discover Salt River, which is the tourism division within the Salt River community. And so we work as an official destination marketing agency for all of the partners within the community, within tribal boundaries. And we also kind of help with B2B relationships, keeping our networking really strong within the community. And so, yeah, all of those great things kind of tie into Aaron's and he'll I'm sure we'll go into what he does, but we work really well as far as start to finish from the developments that happen within tribal community.
Awesome. Yes. Aaron, she said that you work very good together, and we'll find out about what you do. So tell us. I'm
interested to see if they're going to fight by the end of
tell
the
us exactly what you do.
No, we do work very well together. We actually work across the hall from each other.
Oh, thank God there's a hallway.
I know, exactly. We can both shut our doors if we need to. So I'm a project manager in our community development department within Salt River. So between Malina and I, we kind of cover all development from before a shovel goes in the ground.
You're the early one.
I'm the early one, along with a lot of other great staff within our department. And then Malina's team, kind of once properties open and are operational, they come on board and they kind of help with the continual marketing of it. So, we're a very relationship built organization, and we like to introduce individuals and developments to all parties from the beginning. So we say, all right, you may not have finalized a lease, you may not have broken ground, but here are all these people from beginning to maybe 10 years from now that you're going to be working with. So I get the great opportunity to kind of work on a lot of the elements of the development process within the community, again, with a lot of other individuals within the community development department, and help the continued growth of Salt River.
Interesting.
I think one of the biggest questions, and maybe Malina, you can help, when it comes to the tribal lands and specific, like how it's what's the right word, bifurcated around the valley. Can you, when you said the word boundaries, can you define like where the boundaries are for you guys?
Yes. So Salt River lays on 52,000 acreage, and development essentially only happens on what we call the Western Corridor, which is everything between Pima and the 101 freeway. And it runs up in south and north about 14-ish miles, starting at pretty much Via de Ventura, and then coming down southward. So
all the way to the
like the
what,
202?
the 202 and the whatever they
Mhm.
So you guys are right there across from Tempe Marketplace. That's your southernmost border. Okay.
And you said the northernmost, like it starts about Villa de Ventura?
Yep.
So about where Talking Stick is.
A little bit more north than that. So the edge I think it's called Pima Center,
Mhm.
or is kind of like where Dutch Bros is. That's always like a good landmark for people. That's basically the most northern border.
Interesting. Before we jump into all the nuts and bolts, I think you mentioned in some of the pre-show notes the SRP MIC, for the sake of time and trying to say that over and over again, you said is made up of primarily of two tribes.
Yes. So
I did never know that. I
Yeah, I can kind of go into
Yeah,
like
please.
our
Would
you please?
history a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So we'll start with the name. Like we can break down the
Mhm.
name. The Salt River Pima Maricopa, Indian community. So Salt River Pima is one tribe, and that's how you would say in English. But we actually refer to ourselves as the Ogumil-Atham.
I have heard that before.
Yep.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
so that translates to Salt River people.
Mm.
And then Maricopa, which we refer to ourselves in our language as Ashiram Pipash, which translates to people who live upwards of water. So it's two distinct tribes. We've had, generations of living together in the same area and that sort of thing. And so when the community was created by executive order, our tribes were placed together in the same geographical location, but two different languages, two distinct cultures, even in kind of design and art and things like that, you'll see kind of some differences as well. So
Very interesting.
Yeah.
But have done everything together from the beginning?
Yep.
Wow.
Well, I wouldn't say necessary. What do you
Yeah.
constitute
Well,
the
yeah, I
beginning?
see what you're saying. Yeah. But for a long time.
Yes,
Yeah,
for
okay.
a long since pre-contact.
Okay. Awesome. Now let's get into the good stuff. And I know this is the stuff that I get asked all the time. I want to build something. And I'm like, oh man, look at all that land. I can just go out. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to buy me a chunk of land right there off the 101. And I'm going to build me something. That's not how it works out there, is it?
Not necessarily.
Mhm.
I mean, to kind of take it a step back and kind of also piggyback
Mhm.
on what Melina said, when the land was really, the boundaries were created, the community was also parceled out. So there were different parcels that were given to different families within the community,
Oh,
all
interesting.
throughout the community boundaries. And way back when, there were actually two different grouping of parcels that were given. Given one grouping of parcels way on the east side of the community, that was at that point kind of in the rich land where the Salt River flowed, and that the water was essential for living. So
Right.
that was kind of the prime real estate, quote unquote,
Okay.
back then. And then another piece of land that was given was kind of on the way western portion of the community, and at that point, kind of that was the kind of out in the middle of nowhere at that time. Well, as time has morphed and changed, that kind of western portion has become the 101 corridor. Kind of the eastern portion is more of kind of the natural preserve type of land. So either way, the land was broken up and given to individual Native American families. So that continues to this day. The land up and down the corridor is owned by either allottees, so individual Native American families, and we refer to that land as allotted land, or it's tribal land, so it's owned and controlled by the tribal government. So, you will be driving up and down the 101, and you may see a development like the pavilions at Talking Stick, for example, and you'll see that there's a kind of southern boundary, and that development just stops. And then there's open land, and then another development just starts. And people say, well, why is there that open land? Well, it's because there are different landowners in all of those groupings of land that developers are working with, or the tribe is working with, to bring development onto the community. So as a developer, rather than going on and purchasing a piece of land as you would in other parts of the valley, you would come on and you would work on a long-term land lease with the individuals that own that land.
And by long term, you mean?
Up to 99 years.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that could be one landowner, or that could be 200 landowners. So throughout time, as families grew and fractionalized and all, the ownership stake on those parcels grew or shrank and then grew and adjusted, again, to make it today that it depends on the parcel, depends on the number of people that kind of are the controlling interest of that parcel, and also it depends on if that group of family members or community members even have an interest in developing. There are individuals that say, this is not an area that I'm interested in developing, no matter how big that lease check may be. It's a
Really,
it's a
I see you shaking your
Yeah.
head, Melina. It's like, yeah, you hear it all the time. So some of what we would consider prime land, maybe right off the 101, there's some that just have no desire to do anything with it.
And I think that's mostly a cultural difference.
I was wondering if not. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's a saying that I've heard periodically through my time. I've been with the community almost 12 years, and heard individuals say, land is forever, but money burns. So it's something that, the land will always be there. The money won't always be there. So, whether it is that there's not an interest to develop today, there may be interest to develop in the future, but there's no need to rush into anything. So, different families have different mentalities, and through the long-term land leases, the interested families or the tribal government will, work with groups like a Great Wolf Lodge of the world, or
Right.
other developers to bring development in. So that might instantly sound extremely complicated, but I will tell you it really isn't. And that's why we have, in our department itself, that's why we have 84 people to be able to kind of work through those, to have the landowner relations, to have those communication, to have those processes. We obviously are going to kind of toot our own horn a bit, but we hear a lot of times that our process, once people get in it, is actually easier than a lot of other municipalities. But it's just a mystery to many.
It's the mystery.
Yeah, it's like I've never done this before, so it's got to be hard.
So
so you
quit
really
hogging all the questions,
no,
man.
I've got all the good ones. We'll leave his bad ones for later. So it really can turn into just getting a family at the table, or whatever it is, whatever the case may be, and working through the details, negotiating.
Exactly. So I'm an Ohio
That's
boy.
amazing to me.
I'm from Ohio, and there's a lot of farmland around
I was gonna
Ohio.
say.
It's very similar. I've seen a lot of comparisons, kind of the rural farming community to the Salt River, where I have family that owns big farms, and they have to decide what they're going to do with that. Is it going to become a solar farm? Is it going to become a shopping mall? And it's
Or an Intel fab site.
Exactly. It's kind of the same mentality, and it's it impacts so many different people for so many different generations that people think it's unique just to Salt River, or just to tribal
No, and you
communities.
see it on non-tribal land too. You see where farmers
Exactly.
just not going to sell the farm. I don't care what they build around me. I'm not selling.
And I think when you
Yeah.
put that comparison, people are like, "Oh,
Get it?
I get it."
Yeah.
But it just because it's a tribal community, sometimes just there's those blinders on of not thinking of the comparison in the quote unquote real world for others. Well, truly within Salt River, again, the process is different, but it's not challenging. It's not impossible. It's just different.
So on that, can I go?
Yeah, sure. Tag, you're it.
Go ahead. Thanks for letting me have a
Yep,
spot.
go ahead.
All right, back to you.
Yep, that's it.
So another one I always get is, because we all drive that corridor all the time, is the ag difference. And do you guys then control, when I say you guys, you can control your own P&Z then from a planning and zoning standpoint, as far as you have a lot more liberty, I would assume, to keep agricultural where it is versus if you want to do a development for industrial or like a McKesson or whomever, right? You guys have that luxury of determining that without going through a big formal review, or how does that work?
Correct. I mean, we are a municipality just like anybody else, just like city of Scottsdale, city of Phoenix. We have our planning and zoning department. I said that Melina and I are next to each other all across the hall. Right across the other hall is the head of our planning division, and they control all of the zoning, and we do have the capabilities of changing things as needed, but we go through our formal processes to do so. We have our general plan to be able to kind of orchestrate what is going to go where. probably about 8 years ago, you would see a lot of ag leases on the western part of the 101. But as the talking stick entertainment kept growing, and you're seeing hotels pop up and office buildings pop up, and there happened to be farming directly across the street that causes dust issues and other things like that. It was the determination of council that we are going to relocate the ag leases to the east side of the 101. That's beneficial in many different ways. One, it kind of helps the continuation of that development, but also ag leases produce much less in revenue than a commercial lease does. So it's looking at kind of that big picture and what's going to be beneficial to the community, but also to the landowners. And most of the landowners being allottees, it's looking out for the community at large and what can be the most beneficial for everybody.
And I think, sorry, I
No,
just
go
think
ahead.
that an important point to make too, when we're talking about the decision-making processes and the planning and the vision, the bigger pictures, is the seven-generation philosophy, because that is where really development was born for Salt River. And I don't know if you're familiar with the seven-generational philosophy, but essentially it's that, every decision that's made by leadership should be made with the mentality that how is this decision going to affect those 7 generations from now? So those important decisions, they're all made very calculated and strategically, because that philosophy is always, in the back of our head. And
that's been utilized, I would assume, for years.
Yes. So actually how, it's all kind of born, and I'm sure we'll touch more about it, is the pavilions at Talking Sticks. So that whole development and the whole basis was the seven generation philosophy, is how can we make sure that we are securing the future of our members 7 generations from now, and how it all boils down to the benefit of the community members. So, income or, developments that come to the community in turn help to, as Aaron mentioned, we're our own municipality. So we run our own departments, our infrastructure, programs, and all of that, that comes from the development side of things. So even things such as, cultural knowledge and making sure that we're perpetuating and sustaining cultural knowledge, we need our funding from our programs and things like that to be able to preserve those things that are very important to us. And so that's kind of how the larger picture of everything too, and the decision making and the planning and all of those things that kind of all come together in this large.
Yeah, it's fascinating,
vision.
really. So although it's very much like what we all think of government, it's there's other things that are important, not as in typical government. I would assume there's a tribal council that creates these, not these laws, but make sure that these are upheld. I'm almost wanting to say traditions, because they've been around. I would assume that's not just this 7 generations. They did this,
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
It's
really
fascinating stuff.
cultural paradigms and things like that. I get this question all the time, and maybe you could help the audience. Is there any federal oversight from BIA in any of the things you do, and how does that work?
There is. So, all tribal governments have kind of a mandate and an oversight by BIA. Throughout time, the Salt River community has actually taken a lot of those responsibilities in-house, has kind of become a self-governed community. And that's beneficial to both Salt River and to the BIA, because, if we can do 95% of what the BIA needed to do, and then, they're just kind of the final reviewer and final sign off, it helps us and them be a little more efficient and be more progressive. So we actually have like a land titles and records office within the community, which is something that a lot of tribal governments do not have, and they rely on BIA or other organizations to kind of do those services. So we have the benefit of kind of the trust from experience from the BIA to say, you guys do all of this because you understand our processes. You understand kind of what a final lease product is going to look like. You understand where our kind of our hot buttons are. You are always looking out for the community members as a whole for their benefit for today and the 7-generational thinking. And then we orchestrate with the BIA, on a regular basis to finalize things. So we are less reliant on them, but they're obviously a fantastic partner and all of the community.
Have you, in your 12-year tenure, was that always the case, or have you seen an increase lately?
An increase lately.
Okay, because of your sophistication and everything you guys are doing.
Exactly.
And we'll get in that in just a second. Let's take a break real quick.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
hear from our sponsor, and then we're going to dive into that one.
Torrey Contracting, your full-service Division 9 contractor. Torrey Contracting operates with a smaller, hands-on team. This cohesive structure results in superior workmanship and economical solutions. We deliver projects with unsurpassed commitment to quality and stewardship of budget. Torrey Contracting, small enough to listen, big enough to deliver.
So on that note, I've been out here for 38 years or so.
He's 39 years old, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. So, but land sat for years and nothing happened. And it seems over the last, I don't even know, I can't even think of what that period is. You're about to tell me. What changed and why do we see the growth, and do we see that all that building and construction going on out there?
So you're not wrong. Things have definitely ramped up to, the naked eye within the last 15 years or so. But I think what a lot of people tend to forget is the infrastructure before, a shovel goes in the ground for development is what needs to come in first.
Sure.
And, you look at, other municipalities and, how much time it took for them to, put in the utilities and the roads and all. The 101, didn't come until the 90s, and that was a big contributor to traffic.
Sure.
At that point, you would see that there were no even east-west roads kind of going within the community.
I remember when it was just Pima, when it was mostly, wasn't it Pima?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
So there was many years of not only creating the infrastructure, but creating the processes. And, the community throughout time had different revenue sources, like our, sand and gravel operation and our landfill and some other revenue sources. But, the big catalyst was gaming, and gaming gave the community the opportunity to really then reinvest a lot of those funds back into infrastructure and the ability to grow and to the ability to plan. And in the 90s there was a famous architect named Charles Schiffner that actually came in and he did these listening sessions, is what they called it, and talked to the community as the 101 was coming and said, what do you want to see? We're about ready to hit a new time in the community where there's going to be some opportunities for development. And what do you see that looking like, and kind of listen to the community, and that really had become kind of a blueprint of what the community wanted to see, both development wise and kind of cultural influences. And I think that's a great example of, it's not all right, 101's coming, we've got infrastructure in, let's go. It goes back to that long-term thinking and long-term planning. And once the infrastructure came in, and the infrastructure, not only the physical in the ground, but the infrastructure within the government, and staff started being built and all. If you ever have the opportunity to come to the Two Waters government campus, it is a beautiful campus. Well, it hasn't always been there. It used to be modular buildings where, I heard the stories of, there's, a handful of guys in one pickup truck that were running the government, and
seriously,
truly. And just throughout time, and as some revenues started being produced, things could grow and grow and grow. So just it really took baby steps, and nothing happened just overnight. But as things got finalized and opportunities became a reality, that's when you saw a lot of the development happening with, with office, and really was kind of the first catalyst, and with Talking Stick Golf Club, and, things just kind of really baby stepped from there. And, we started catching up.
Yeah, so it was all of these little baby steps that got us finally to the place where she could have a job and you could worry about tourism.
Yep.
For years there was
Mhm.
tourism. What are you talking about, tourism? It really is becoming more of a place.
A destination, if you will.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That's why she has the job and you don't,
She
Robert.
has the
Yeah.
job. I'm like, that was just so seamless. It really does become a destination. And even more so, I see now that you mention it like that, over the last 3-4 years, when you get, getting things like the Great Wolf Lodge, and you're getting White Castle hamburgers. That's a
Oh
destination.
man, that was
Yeah. Oh man.
yeah,
Agreed.
we remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Oh boy, here we go. That's a 30-minute part of
Yeah.
the
Oh,
podcast right
wow.
now.
But it does become interesting. Touch on that a little bit about, and maybe the planning behind there. Obviously had to have been part of the vision.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as Aaron mentioned, as the resort came and we had more entertainment, district partners, and we had more to be able to market and to be able to share. And we're now at a place where it's very diverse as far as entertainment partners go. So we can accommodate a bachelor party, and at the same time there's a birthday party going on in the district. So
Right.
it's the diversification, I think, for the different demographics that the area hits it just is so seamless, really. And it just makes sense, especially with Salt River Fields there, and the events that they bring year round, really. And then going into spring training, spring training really being the heart of destination travel in Salt River, and all of the hospitality partners that have been popping up in the last couple of years, in the last 5 years. So now we have about 6 hospitality partners that all hit different demographics and different uses, really, in Great Wolf Lodge. But then you've also got Staybridge, we've got some long-term, we've got Residence Inn is there, and then of course Talking Stick, our gaming property, this is there. So a kind of different situations there too. So
Is another question I hear all the time, is Talking Stick going to expand the resort and golf at all, or is there any?
Oh,
can't you
she's got
talk
the
about-
smile. She's like, oh, he's going to ask that.
Well, I'm just asking the questions
actually,
that we get.
I don't know if you have noticed or driven by lately, but there is a tent outside. So there is an expansion. The poker room is being, expanded. We've also got Casino Arizona that continues to, be refreshed and reworked as well. And then there's also if you'll notice, some fencing and things going on at the golf course right now. So they're undergoing.
So the answer is yes.
Well, it's not a mystery
Yeah.
to kind of piggyback on that. So, that without getting into the details, the Arizona Gaming Compact change, the sports betting, which came to the Valley, was, a big element of that. And it gave tribes the opportunity to kind of expand some of the gaming operations. And as you can imagine, the square footage that is at, many of the gaming properties throughout the Valley was built to support the previous limits of gaming. And those limits have increased. So, there are some great opportunities for us to expand our properties temporarily right now with these tents, and we'll see what that looks like in the future for some additional growth and improvement. But I mean, there's always something happening at the gaming properties as they're kind of improving and new technologies
Kind of
coming in.
evolving.
Exactly. I mean, they have construction happening all the time, just to keep ahead of the curve of sorts.
So the other one we always get, at least in the construction space, is, what are you guys going to do with the big cool corner? I call it the inside the Hayden McKellips loop where the Phoenix Rising used to play.
Yep.
Is that still in the long term play, is that going to be a large sporting complex that you guys are going to help co-develop, or is there anything you can tell the audience in that area?
Sure, happy to mention that. So on the west side of the 101, that area where Phoenix Rising was, that they've also had some great temporary uses with the Cavalia kind of traveling
Correct.
horse show.
Mhm.
That is a group of allotted land. So there's a lot of allottees that you have a development group that are kind of looking at that 7 generational kind of mindset to build something. So we as a tribe, we are not the ones kind of master planning and developing it. It's the landowners and working with their development group to look at those opportunities. They will absolutely be bringing some great things. Right now, there's nothing that is
There's
public,
nothing imminent or public. Got it.
nothing imminent is a great way to put it. But they do things very strategic, and again with the long term. But you talk about utilities. I mean, that area needs utilities brought to it. So we've been working with them and improving the utilities access and all. Again, people look at that prime real estate and say, let's put a shovel in the ground yesterday. Well, we have a lot of kind of behind the scenes work. So it's a great vision by the group, and it's a great community kind of working with them to get it ready. So it's a prime location. So someday, yes, something great will happen, but nothing imminent.
Good. Is there any plans to go farther east with development than what you see now? Is that staying primarily? Is the 7 generational plan for it to stay ag, mostly going
or
east?
residential, or
Yeah.
the lattes?
Yeah, so we definitely encourage people to stay, on the western border of everything.
That is the focus.
because there is residential there, and
Got
that's
it.
also where a lot of the natural preserve is as well. And we've got Red Mountain there, which is closed off to the public, and it's a sacred mountain for us culturally. And
Okay, where Red Mountain?
Between
Farther east. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you're talking-
Thank you. I'm going
if
west.
you're
Yeah,
going
okay,
up
I
to
know where
Fountain-
you're talking
going
about
up to
now.
Fountain Hills.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So that is kind of just a little side note, geographically speaking, is that is kind of like our beacon to home. Every time we're going on the freeway or we're coming, even if it's from like a weekend trip or anything like that, like when we see Red Mountain, to us that just symbolizes home for us. And so that's a sacred space, and it's closed off to the public, and people see these beautiful views that you can see from Talking Stick Resort, and like all different Top Golf and things like that, where you have these amazing, incredible views. But you can look, but
don't touch.
Don't
Yeah.
travel over there. And
Interesting.
that's exactly why actually it closed. It was open up into the public up until the 80s, and then they ended up closing it just because it was being vandalized. It was not properly being cared for by guests and things like that. So it was just time to close it so that we could preserve it for our cultural sake.
Sure.
So yeah, the focus is primarily will always be on the Western Corridor, and for those purposes, to preserve the land and our residents' privacy, just to have non-community members tourism, or all of which way traveling throughout the community is definitely not ideal for community members.
That makes sense. Makes
It does.
absolute sense. So but thinking about that, so where Arizona Rising is, that's was that McKellips, and basically McKellips and the 101,
Correct.
just south of that.
Yep.
What about all of the mobile home places? Is that on tribal land as well, right there?
Yeah, so the Shadow Mountain, the mobile home community that is just north of McKellips, that is on within the community
Now, I
boundaries.
had heard something years ago that they were going to start moving those out of there before too long.
So there was a second mobile home park on 92nd Street, kind of catty-cornered to Casino, Arizona, a property called Roadrunner. That lease ended a couple years ago, and it was not renewed. So, the residents there were moved out, and just like any leases, leases come to an end. And so, can't say that Shadow Mountain will be there forever, but as of right now, they're currently under a lease.
Interesting.
But on the east side of the 101, where Salt River Materials Group is with their mining operation, that would be the one area sometime in the future that could be looked at for potential development. If there is development on kind of the east side, it would be kind of south of McKellips. That that's the riverbed.
It is, yeah.
The riverbed has been such an important element for Salt River. It's been currency of sorts. So,
We're all dependent on it.
way back when the water was flowing, water was currency, and it was
Sure.
bringing, farming, and it's bringing life. When water wasn't there any longer, the community found an alternative way to bring currency to the community and turn it into a mining operation. That mining operation is coming to an end. They're going to be relocating to a plant on the Beeline. And once that mining operation is gone, the final opportunity of kind of currency could be there for future development. But again, nothing imminent. There still is a sand and gravel operation there with Salt River Materials Group, but that could be a future location for development.
So besides the gaming, which is obviously east, and the Odyssey, which is up, entertainment. Yeah, there really isn't anything east, is there? Now that I think about it, I mean, it's mostly to the
Well,
west.
you must have a lease with the community college as well, because they're on the east side.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
That's there.
Right? Am I right,
That
Aaron?
is correct. Yeah, that's a long-term lease, but that being an educational institution, we don't have anything commercial, essentially north of the canal.
Which makes sense.
Nothing right now, nothing north of or south of Talking Stick Way. There could be development south of Talking Stick Way, kind of going to the canal, but that's as far south as you will see development to kind of up and down the 101 corridor. We have a kind of a zoning district called the Pima corridor that kind of restricts those to keep the ag leases, and there's a lot of residential and natural preserve kind of intact.
So I'm curious. I'm going to switch it more from development to more community based for a minute. What has all this development allowed the community to do closer to home in the agricultural and residential areas for development for the natives?
Yeah, so we actually broke ground on a couple of housing developments as well. So people, I guess, maybe overlook, we still need a lot of infrastructure as far as, housing and residential goes. And so the development that happens in the Pima corridor directly correlates to the community services that are needed for residents.
Oh, very, very, very interesting. So how does a Great Wolf Lodge decide that's where I want to go over any other place?
Great Wolf is kind of a fantastic success story for the community, and I'll kind of touch on a few different layers. So with the 7 generational thinking, I think one of the things that I've been the most impressed with Salt River is how much behind the scenes analysis and kind of review takes place before even a single phone call may happen. And the community is always looking at feasibility studies and market studies to show, what is the area going to support? Where are we going to, not monopolize, potentially our other businesses? Where, I joke and say that's why you didn't see, CrossFit gyms popping up around every corner, because they were kind of flash in the pan concepts for a while, where you felt like a Starbucks, they were on every corner. Everything is very well thought out. And, as Salt River Fields was being constructed, as, Talking Stick Resort was going from the tents to the Vegas style casino and resort that it is today, the community continued to do these feasibility studies and said, what are we missing? And one thing that kept popping up was a family oriented resort. And, they use names like Great Wolf Lodge in the example. And we said, oh, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. And then all of a sudden, this show called Undercover Boss happened, and they featured Great Wolf Lodge. And there was something about that episode that there were multiple leaders within the community that saw it and saw the family-oriented organization. Swear, really family-oriented organization, and said, you know what, that there's something special about that company. And we came back and said, we really like that episode. They keep mentioning a brand like that in these feasibility studies. Maybe we should make a phone call. And that was years ago, and our director of our department in community development actually made a phone call, and it didn't really go anywhere. And long story short, a couple years later, I had kind of moved positions and was over in community development, and was kind of told this story. And I said, hey, you know what? I actually know somebody that works at Great Wolf Lodge. Why don't I make a phone call? And so I called that person, who called this person, who called this person, who called this person. And I ended up getting the phone number for their development head, and called him. And somehow I had gotten his home phone number. And called. He's kind of like, how did you get this number? And I'm like, I'm not going to share my sources, but called him, and I said, we just love to introduce you to the community. And as many people do that may not be familiar with Salt River, you kind of hear it in their voice and say, you know what, tribal community, I don't know if that's the right fit for us. We say, hold on, you're in front of a computer, type in this address. And I frequently give the Salt River Fields address, and all of a sudden the Google Map shows, and you can hear the tone in their voice change. They say, oh, wow.
Because there is a lot.
You have a lot going on. You know, your proximity to a lot of residents, within the neighboring municipalities, your proximity to airports, there's a lot of positives. And they say, yeah, let's talk. So we started a conversation. We invited them out. They stood on the lot where they eventually were and said, there's something special about this place. And next thing we knew, about 4 years later, we're breaking ground. And one of the best things about it is we broke ground on a Friday, and the project was first announced to the public on that Tuesday. And the amount of phone calls we got that said, this must have happened overnight. We said, yeah, overnight, only 4 years overnight. And they were just shocked of how quiet we were able to keep it. And that's one of the great things about the community is that piece of land that it's on is tribal land. And, there's no public tax dollars that go towards it. And, it's all within the community. So, we can do things, without having to, put it in, shining lights and scream it from the rooftop until it's done. And, it was an example of an organization that their mentalities and their thought process and their people aligned perfectly with the community, because I've seen a lot of projects that it could have been a great financial opportunity for the community, but if the people and the company's morals and all
culturally just don't
match the community, it's not going to be a long-term partner. And Great Wolf just tied in perfectly, and
fascinating.
We are here today with them, and we're honored to be one of their locations, and it's their second location within a tribal community. So we're very excited about that.
Were you the first though?
No, they actually have a relationship with the Chehalis tribe in the state of Washington.
Okay.
And I will tell you, their successful relationship up there was another catalyst to make it a reality.
A validator as much, yeah.
Okay, awesome. We're going to take another break, and we'll finish up.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
What kind of things does Discover Salt River do to build that community awareness about these places and things? And where can people go to find out about that, about what all there is to do, that destination?
Yeah. So to kind of hit on your first question, I mean, I think a lot of it ties to a mirror of Great Wolf Lodge and the relationship that we have with Salt River, because that is echoed throughout the community as far as relationship and just like that strong networking and those community ties. I have never really experienced anything so everybody is just so willing to be a great partner, and it's the same. They know that they'll receive that right back, and so that is what really helps us as a DMO to be able to work together and do events together. To that way we can promote the district as a whole and as a destination. Is everybody playing nicely in the sandbox, so to speak, and
Yeah.
which we have that. And it's just a very unique.
It's got to be
Oh
refreshing.
my gosh.
Yeah.
It's so great to know that you have, that partnership with them, especially. And I'll just give an example because our hospitality partners have just knocked it out of the park with their partnership. Is recently we had terrible monsoons and it affected our residents. Some homes were completely destroyed. And that happened in July. And we were kind of on the news and it was all of this. And they opened their arms and their partnership was so solid. Their camaraderie was there and they helped the community and their families and helped us lodge families that didn't have a home to go to that night. And it was all like that. We got a phone call and we're like, hey, we need to place. We had placed over like 200 families. And that was all
at your hospitality partners.
All through. And that was
That's
all
killer.
through like just, that's the type of, relationships that are built here. It's more than that financial side of things. It's truly a community. And as I said, from a DMO perspective, it helps us because we all can work together to create amazing marketing campaigns together and really establish the Talking Stick Entertainment District as a destination. And so as far as, the second question, where can everybody find? So we're on socials. Talking Stick AZ is the handle for Talking Stick Entertainment District, but also Discover Salt River. We have a website. We're also on socials and can kind of keep up to date on the things that are going on, all of the ongoings. We've got newsletters and all of that sort of thing as well. So
You mentioned that Salt River Fields does stuff year round. I know there's been food truck things and I get all that, but what are like some of the bigger?
So this fall season is actually super, super exciting. We've got an amazing lineup. We've got Spooktacular will be here, Arizona Barrels, Bottles, and Brews.
Say that fast.
Yeah,
10 times.
exactly. Arizona Wine Festival will be here too. I'm missing probably a couple of others.
It's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
I mean, they have something going on every weekend, whether it's for kids or for the adults. saltriverfields.com.
Yeah.
We've got such fabulous weather that there is no winter really. What are you looking at over there? You got something to say?
Nothing. Just looking at. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I cannot believe I almost forgot. Enchant is coming for the first time to Salt River Fields. It's coming this Christmas season.
Now, what is Enchant?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
To me, basically, it looks like a Christmas light Disneyland.
Okay.
Look out.
That'll
be packed.
Yeah, it's going to be really
a
exciting.
Drive-through?
It's not a drive-through.
Oh,
you go
very
in
good.
and it's an interactive space. They've got like an opportunity to where you can ice skate through. And,
oh, wow.
Santa's there and Mrs. Claus is there. And they have an ice bar that's there too. So it's kind of, I think, it's going to be amazing. So
that really sounds neat. The reason I said the drive-through, that's kind of become a big thing the last 2 or 3 years. I've seen them, that pop. I don't remember the names of them. When you said that, I thought, oh, it's got to be one of those. No, I think this is even a step above.
Yeah, this is the post-pandemic where people can actually get out of the car.
Gotcha.
Experience. Yeah,
don't have to
be locked in your car anymore, Robert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of want to piggyback on something Melina said because it's helped our world in the development side. And I think she's not giving herself enough credit and the team enough credit. But, I mentioned Great Wolf Lodge and how I had to introduce them over the phone to, Salt River and the Talking Stick Entertainment District. That was 6-7 years ago when I had to do that. These conversations today are so much easier because the tourism team has done such a great job of kind of marketing the area. And a lot of times it's in places that you may not see, we may not see because they're out in other markets. They're in feeder markets and they're, introducing whether it's in Denver or Chicago or New York or, wherever it may be, to say, hey, come experience, come discover Salt River. So I know that I've been able to be helped when I, think you're having a conversation with somebody, and you're like, all right, I have to go through the whole spiel of who we are. And they're like, no, we saw an ad, like ended up on the newspaper, or, we've been to a spring training game, or we've been to the resort, or we've played golf, or we've done this, or we've done that. And I'm like, well, you just made my job way easier.
Yeah, it makes people seek you out as opposed to you having to go seek them out.
And that's one of the unique things about a tourism office is what they do. Locals may not always see that because you're familiar. You hear talking stick, and your mind goes somewhere specifically. That they're out there to introduce the brand to people that have never seen it before. So I know on the development side, we're so grateful in what they do because they've made our job a heck of a lot easier by kind of increasing the awareness of the brand.
Sure.
I got one. So, Aaron, you did a great job both of you did, of talking about the Great Wolf Lodge success story. But if you could we go a little bit further where I think we talked about it in kind of our pre-work here of what are the benefits of working with you as an entity in that development space, so that the listeners or audience out there, if they have that same holistic alignment with you, whether it be a capital stack or something that they're looking for, what are those benefits so they can reach out to you?
So there are multiple benefits, and some of these benefits are beneficial to some, and some are not. We have to look at it two ways. We have to look at the location as being one. You cannot beat the location that Salt River has for development opportunities. But kind of putting on a different hat that, again, some appreciate and some don't, is we care, because the landowners are, they're not just random corporations that are buying land and then developing out. They're the constituents of council. They're the residents that everything that we do to help support the education and the medical and all the services on the municipality. I mean, we know the people that these developments are going to be working with for these long-term leases. So we're more invested that it's going to be a successful development. That's why our tourism team meets these developments early on and saying, all right, here's all the support you're going to get. And our tourism office is free. So, a lot of municipalities, there's, you have to pay this membership fee to get all this and that. Everything that their office does is free. And we do that because we have kind of that all boats rise mentality. Is the more successful a business is, the more successful we all are, from the landowners to the government, as a tax revenue, collector, to the businesses itself. So, location, I mean, it's going to be great, but also there's a level of caring. And I think a lot of people that have come to the community are kind of blown away by that because, they get that personal experience. And I think that that's why, yes, we may be unique, we may be a little different, but if you're willing to kind of learn and experience it very quickly, you'll realize it's not that difficult. It's not that mysterious. And we'll work with partners to go through the process.
I got one. We had an audience question. Sorry, Aaron, this is for you. What made you get into your line of work?
All right. So do we have another hour here? To give a very quick background, I had the opportunity to start working with the community almost 12 years ago as the head of sales and marketing at Salt River Fields, the spring training facility. So I actually worked in the minor league baseball world for many years before that. And baseball brought me to Salt River. And so I was there for, about 4.5 years, and the government and I got to know each other very well, and, an opportunity to kind of move over to the government side and help with the growth of special projects is kind of what we called it, presented itself. And it would, you could tell kind of the family oriented organization, and you could tell the long-term thinking, and you could tell, it's just amazing people. And it was a lot of, hey, if you're willing to jump over here and kind of work through this with us, we're willing to figure it out alongside with you. And I had the opportunity to move over to the government and help with the tourism team. But as they've grown, I've kind of stepped away. We again have a great group of people that does kind of the development and leasing. I've been able to work with them, kind of work on a lot of special projects. So, it's been 6 or so years ago, 6.5 years, that I stepped over and had no idea what I truly was stepping into. And I've tapped into the real estate world and the development world. And I'm not a real estate agent. I'm not a developer. I'm not a construction guy. But I've had a great opportunity to kind of help project manage a lot of these and, help with relationship building, because, the government didn't have a lot of those entities. A lot of it was as people were reaching out, and this gave the opportunity to kind of go a little on the offense, like the Great Wolf example of, making phone calls and working with our developers and all. So, 12 years ago, I would have never guessed this is where I would be, but it's an unbelievable organization, and I'm so glad it worked out the way it did.
That's great.
Yeah.
And-
How do people get what were you going to say?
I was going to
That
steal
was
your
me.
line.
Were you?
That was me. Sorry.
That was you. Oh, go ahead. Did you have a question?
Same question to you, Melina. I mean, there's probably some obvious parts of what made you do what you do, but like, from your point of view, why did you choose to do what you're doing?
So I actually came from Talking Stick Resort. So both of us came from enterprises and landed on the government sector, which has been super, amazing. But for me, the decision to go into tourism specifically stems from the cultural value of hospitality. Which is something that has carried on, even since the gold rush. Salt River has been a place for, if people were traveling to California, where they would stop and they would find shelter and they would be able to get fed for the night and then carry on. And so that has really resonated with me, but also, my great grandparents were involved in some of the seven generational conversations and that sort of thing. And so when the tourism opportunity came, it felt, in my heart, right, especially to carry on that kind of legacy, I guess, so to speak. But, and that traditional value too has just been, an amazing journey, and it's made me be so passionate. And I find that a lot of people,
You can sense your passion. Yeah.
Oh,
It's a
you.
perfect spot for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and
She's not elevated off the
Mhm.
chair at all, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of people who find themselves in tourism and hospitality do so by accident. Like,
Yeah.
it's always just like, how did I end up here? I don't know, but it's a perfect fit, and here we go. Like, this is how it is. So.
Awesome. How do we get a hold of you? How does our audience get a hold of you if we want to hear more, find out more?
I guess through our email is the best.
Okay.
And we can, I don't know.
You can
list
find that through your
those.
website.
Yep.
Okay.
Actually, both of our emails are listed on the Discover Salt River website.
Discover
There's-
Salt River.
There,
Salt,
that's the key.
Salt River.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
And-
Awesome.
And we'll post that on all of our
Yep.
social media follow up.
Yeah. It's been fantastic. I mean, I've been blown away. I've learned a lot. I mean, you think you know, all you think you
No.
know, all you've heard, now I know. It's been fantastic.
Your energy was great, and your
Yeah.
information was even better.
Yeah, unbelievable. We'll have you on again sometime, probably a year from now, so when Salt River looks completely different than it does
Then you can
today.
talk about new things.
Yeah, exactly. All right. See you next week, Daryl. We'll see you next week. Get
Take us
here.
out of here, Daryl.
You've been listening to the Mac and Blue Show, brought to you by Torrey Contracting and Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the Mac and Blue podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Robert Johnson and JJ Levensky on LinkedIn and Instagram. And tune in live every Monday at 3 p.m. as we continue to introduce you to the people building Arizona. Walt Disney said, "You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality." Until next time, make it a great day.